this Poritz, an overlord in a particular province in Eastern Europe, is told by his beloved bishop that the Jewish people living in his province profess a special skill. They know how to employ Kabbalistic methods and teach a dog how to communicate verbally. They can teach a dog how to speak. This overlord, this Poritz, had a beloved pet. He had a dog who was his best friend, literally. He loved this dog to no end. Imagine, he thought to himself, if I can finally complete the missing link and have this dog talk, the relationship would be elevated to a completely different level. So he summons the leaders of the Jewish community. And he says to them, I'm going to give you my dog. I need you to teach my dog how to talk. They say, Your Honor, we are clueless. It's true. We don't know how to stop talking. But we don't know how to teach a dog how to talk. It's beyond us. He has already been prepped that this is what will come. The Poritz, the overlord, tells them, I have no time for your lies. I'm giving you an ultimatum. Either you take my dog and you teach it how to talk, or I will expel every last Jew from my province, man, woman, and child. I give you 3 days to make a decision and let me know your decision. They leave the mansion brokenhearted. What does one do? They realize that somebody instigated the overlord, the Poritz. Somebody spread a blood libel to their detriment. What do? They decreed a fast. They assembled to pray. They had meeting after meeting among the Roshei HaKol, the leaders of the community. 3 days are passing and nobody has an idea. What do we do? It's the 3rd day. The ultimatum is almost up. May I request that everybody takes their cell phone and puts it on vibrate. May I request that you do it now, not after your phone rings. Since I know you're not Gentiles, so it's hard for you to listen to a Jew the first time, so I'll say it a second time. If you could please take your cell phones and put it on vibrate. Now I know some of you will still have a hard time, because I am a Jew and you're a Jew, and it's hard for one Jew to listen to another Jew. So I guess we'll wait till the next phone rings, and I'll rest my case. That's request number 1. Request number 2 is, we love you and we love your babies even more, but both in a state of silence. Very good. Very good. Very good. Very good. I want this baby to come with me on all my lectures. It's called a good sidekick. It's on the menu. It's called Vibrate. It's on the front menu. You press menu. There's something called Vibrate, and you press on it. I know you don't know. I know. So don't worry. I don't judge you. There's things I don't know too. The ultimatum is coming up. The 3 days are almost about to end. They are clueless. Chaim Yankel, the wood chopper, says, I'm going to the Puritz. I'll solve the problem. They say, you, what do you know? You're an illiterate. You're not educated. You don't know nothing. What are you going to do? He says, you guys don't have a better person or a better idea or a better candidate? Let me go. They have no choice. Chaim Yankel goes. Comes into the overlord. Nu, what is your decision? He says, on behalf of the Jewish community, I say to you, Your Majesty, we are ready to train your dog to verbally communicate. Ah, wonderful! Wow! How long will it take? 7 years. 7 years? Of course, what, you teach a dog to talk in 1 day? What is this, Balaam's donkey? You know how many lessons, how many exercises, how many meditations, how many lectures, seminars, workshops, conventions, retreats, concerts, till the dog can get it. 7 years it will take me to use my Kabbalistic secrets and teach him. If you want it, I am happy to do it. The Puritz thinks and says, it's not easy for me to separate from my beloved dog for 7 years, but you know what? I'm thinking about long-term benefits. I'll do anything to have this dog talk. Wonderful, give me your dog. And with tears in his eyes, the Puritz bids farewell to his dog, and he gives it to Chaim Yankel. Chaim Yankel comes back to shul. Everyone is fasting and saying Tehillim and crying. And in walks the dog with Chaim Yankel. What's this? Chaim Yankel says, what happened? The leader of the Rosh HaKol, the head of the community, begins rebuking him and chastising him. Du bist meshuggah? Are you insane? Have you gone mad? Don't you realize what you have done? We know the truth that you can't teach a dog how to talk. You lied to him. Now after these 7 years, when this dog is not talking, it's not that he will expel us. He will kill every last Jew in his province. Blood on your hands, blood on your hands. Who gave you the chutzpah, the audacity to do this? Chaim Yankel tells him, relax. Relax. You see, in 7 years, lots of things can happen. Number one, the dog may die. The Hund can sterben. Number two, I may die. Number three, the Puritz may sterben. The Puritz may die. The Overlord may die. One of the three. They said, yeah. And what if none of you die? The dog is alive and you're alive and the Puritz is alive? So then we'll worry about it after 7 years. Why think about it today? 7 years have passed. The dog was alive. The Puritz was alive. And Chaim Yankel was alive. Was Titman? What do you do? The right time, 7 years later, Chaim Yankel shows up at the door of the Overlord. Your Honor, I'm here. My dog! My dog! What's going on? Did you teach it how to talk? Says, Your Majesty, I have taught your dog how to talk. Today was 7 years. Sun rose, and your dog began to talk. Wow! Wow! What did he say? As he opened his mouth, Your Majesty, he began telling me everything he has seen. in your bedroom. Go back and shoot him dead right now! Shoot him dead! Chaim Menkel says, yes, Your Majesty, I will do just that. Olav Hashalom. This anecdotal story has in it more than one lesson. But one lesson certainly it contains in it, and that is to really appreciate something, you can't only look at it short term or from a short timeline. You have to be able to expand your horizons in order to appreciate anything. They once asked a Chinese politician what his opinion of the French and American Revolution was. And he said, it's too early to tell. America relative to China, babies. But I would think that nonetheless, notwithstanding the honor of the China, 200 years is a sufficient amount of time in order to evaluate certain ideas, at least from a certain perspective. 200 years ago exactly, in the year 1812, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Tanya and the Code of Law, the Shulchan Aruch, one of the great disciples of the Maggid of Mezrich, the chief pupil of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Chassidic movement, and the man who himself founded what became known as Chabad, Chassidism, Rabbi Shneur Zalman, returned his soul to its maker on the 24th of Teves, 1812, Tovkuf Ayin Gimel, which makes this year, the 24th of Teves, the exact 200th anniversary since his passing. 200 years have passed. One can see patterns and make some evaluation. And interestingly, this is a convention of women, of Neshei B'nois Chabad, the Midwinter 51st convention. And I recently came across what to me was a fascinating little episode that characterizes a unique relationship between the Alter Rebbe and the role of the Jewish woman, and in a very unexpected fashion, because this is not the 1960s and 70s and 80s, 90s. This is the 18th century, the 1700s. And where did I come across this little story? Not in a Chabad book, not in a Chassidic work, not in a Kabbalistic mystical work, not in a Lubavitch publication, in a very different type of publication. It's called Igros Moshe. Igros Moshe is a set of 8 volumes that contain the halachic responsa of Hagon Reb Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein was one of the greatest halachic authorities of the past generation. He was a Jew who was born in Russia. He was the Rav of Luban in Russia, escaped the Soviet Union, ultimately came to the United States, moved to the Lower East Side of Manhattan, East Broadway, where he founded MTJ, Mesifta Tiferes Yerushalayim, and became known as one of the greatest authorities in Jewish law in the modern this generation. He passed away in 1986. And his responsa, which is important reading for any rabbi who's entrenched in halacha, is contained in Igros Moshe, Letters of Moshe. The 8th volume was published after his passing. I opened up the 8th volume, and I'm reading the introduction. The introduction contains a biography of Reb Moshe Feinstein, who passed away a little early before that. Biography based on stories that his family heard from him. And there they relate the following story. He had a grandmother. I believe her name was Rachel. She lived in a little town. The town in White Russia was called Lyozhne. There was one issue. Today you wouldn't call it an issue. Then they called it an issue. Well, not an issue, but whatever they called it. And that was, she was brilliant. Her father did not know what to do with her. Often then, there were no schools for Jewish girls at the time. There was no Beis Yaakov, there was no Beis Sarah, there was no Beis Ruchel, there was no Beis Rivka. It did not exist. The Jewish girl grew up with the mama and the baba in the home. It was intimate, and through the chicken soup that mother taught the daughter how to make, she learned everything you had to know about Jewish history and about life. In the confines of that home, she learned everything about life. But this woman, Reb Moshe Feinstein's Baba, was brilliant. She was a genius. She had to learn. There was no structure for it. So her father went to whom? He went to the Maggid of Lyozhne. There was the spiritual authority of Lyozhne was who? The Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad. What do I do? So the Alter Rebbe in the 1700s told him, take your daughter and put her in to the same classroom like my grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek was an orphan. His mother died when he was 2 years old. The Alter Rebbe's daughter, her name was Rebbetzin Dvorah Leah. So the Alter Rebbe raised his grandson like a son. He became the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, a great halachic authority as well. His response is contained in a work called Tzemach Tzedek, Sha'al S'tshuvas Tzemach Tzedek. He was a little boy, a baby in Cheder, a young child. The Alter Rebbe told the father, take her, she'll sit in the classroom. They designated a place for her. And she received an intense education in learning, together with the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, as a very young girl with a very young boy, according to the directives of the Alter Rebbe. And the fact is that her grandchild, Reb Moshe Feinstein, became one of the luminaries of the Jewish world in terms of halacha, of Jewish law. Until today, his responsa is a pivotal contribution to the world of Jewish law in all aspects, especially as far as modern developments and technology in the face of Jewish law. And who knows if that decision of the author of the Shulchan Aruch, Harav, the Alter Rebbe, did not have a major contribution and effect. Fascinating historical detail. 200 years later, we can look back, and as I think about it tonight at this convention, and having the privilege of spending with you a whole Shabbos, and this is the moment to express gratitude to the organizers of the 51st convention of Neshei Chabad here in Midwinter, who did a spectacular job. My dear friend Rabbi and Rebbetzin Eisenbach. And I'll be very, very honest with you. I've been to many conventions of Chabad and not Chabad. I've been to many dinners. I have the misfortune of attending many Jewish banquets and listening to many speeches and watching many documentaries and films and so forth. And usually there's one Jew walking around and saying, I'm hungry. And usually it's more than one Jew. And here I saw a miracle this Shabbos. I didn't see anybody complaining. Not about food and not about other things. So somebody did something very right. And I appreciate the privilege and opportunity to be with you here this year again. And when I'm thinking about it, generally, it's not good to applaud rabbis because they think that you want an encore. So I'm thinking about the contribution 200 years later, being here at the convention, And then I noticed there are two major teachings of Chassidus, articulated and explained by the Alter Rebbe. And when you study the last 200 years of Jewish history, it's almost incredible to see that these two teachings were custom made for the two of many, but two of the greatest challenges that confronted and continue to confront the Jewish world only in the past 2 centuries. Unique challenges, unprecedented in earlier generations. And when I study the teachings and works of the Baal Shem Tov, of the Chassidic masters, especially the elaborated works of the Alter Rebbe, whose focus was on developing the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov in a full-fledged, articulate, definitive, and all-encompassing manner, literally address both of these challenges. The two greatest challenges to face the Jewish world in the last 200 years, and continue, was number one, unprecedented assimilation. Not assimilation of a fringe, of the edge of a community. Assimilation that ultimately encompassed most of the Jewish world. We sit here at a convention with hundreds of women, K'nayin Hara, talk with language and terminology that is familiar to everybody or most people here. But there's 16 or 15 million Jews. And how many Jews are even familiar with these concepts? How many Jews know what Shabbos is? And so on and so forth. And it's important to maintain that perspective, because it's the reality of the world we live in. And they are our brothers. There was once a man who came to Hebrew school. His grandson would go to a Sunday Hebrew school of a synagogue in New York, in America. And he sees his grandson and says, "David, how do you like Hebrew school?" And David says, "It's great." And he says, "David, tell me, who broke the tablets?" And he says, "Not me." The man is furious. He goes to his teacher and he says, "You're the teacher, Mr. Cohen?" I asked my grandson who broke the tablets. He says, "Not me, not me." Teacher says, "Relax. I know this boy for 7 months. If he said he didn't do it, he didn't do it." Infuriated, he runs into the principal's office. "Mr. Finkelstein, close down your school." He says, "Why?" "I asked my grandson who broke the tablets." He says, "Not me." I asked his teacher what's going on. The teacher, if he said he didn't do it, he didn't do it. "What type of school are you running?" Principal says, "Relax. I appreciate your pain and I respect your agony. I understand. I make a promise to you here and now. The school will compensate you for the broken tablets. You just give us a receipt and we will pay you the money." Unprecedented assimilation. They once asked a Jew, "What's the difference between ignorance and apathy?" He said, "I don't know and I don't care." The major challenge. The second challenge was, for the first time in hundreds, thousands of years, the ghettos, the walls of the ghettos came crumbling down. And the Jewish people had to confront the reality of integration with the larger society, with the larger world. For the first time in hundreds of years or millennia, Jews suddenly were exposed to a very big world, an interesting world, a diverse world. And it threatened Judaism to its core. Take a character like Moses Mendelssohn, considered the father of Jewish enlightenment in Germany, who lived the very same years like the Alter Rebbe. His Chumash with a German translation was published a decade and a half before the Tanya was published. He was considered the beacon of future enlightened Judaism, but 4 of his children out of 6 converted to Christianity. The historian, and not a very religious historian, on the contrary, the historian Gretz, claims that in Berlin, in the early 1800s, 50% of Jews volitionally converted to Christianity. Volitionally! That's the crisis that was created when they were exposed. Other Jews decided to segregate, recreate artificial walls. But today, 200 years later, Even if you're living in Williamsburg, and even if you're living in Muncie, they just had a major asifa, you probably heard about it, because of the dangers of the internet. The exposure to the world, to modernity, is a fact of life in one way or another. Every young Jewish boy or girl growing up, as isolated in a cocoon he or she may be, must confront sooner or later some realities of a large world. This was the second challenge. And when I open up the works of the Baal HaTanya, the works of the Baal Shem Tov, the works of the Chassidic masters, there are two major teachings which were fully developed, articulated, explained in his teachings. And when you look 200 years later, you see that these two pillars of wisdom that they taught directly confront the two perhaps most important challenges that face their people. And interestingly enough, both ideas are somehow articulated in the portion of Vayeshev, which coincides with Yud-Tes Kislev, the 19th of Kislev, which is both the yahrzeit, the anniversary of the passing of the Maggid of Mezrich, the student and successor of the Baal Shem Tov, and the liberation day of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, where he was imprisoned for his role in teaching Chassidism, and became known in Chabad as Rosh Hashanah L'Chassidus, the new year for Chassidism as it was coined by the Rashab, by the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Shalom Ber, the Rebbe Rashab, who wrote in a letter that Yud-Tes Kislev is the new year of Chassidism, the day when Oir v'chayus nafsheinu niten lanu, the light and life of our soul was given to us. He uses two terms, light and life. Oir and chayus. Light and vitality have interesting characteristics. Both of them do not add anything new. When you have a room that's dark, and then you switch on the light, as they will hopefully do here one day, no new object is added to the room. Light allows you to appreciate that which existed there earlier. The same is with life. The difference between a corpse and something alive is not in the number of limbs or organs or bones or sinews. A corpse may contain the exact same bodily facts and structure as the living organism. It's just one is lifeless and one is alive. Light and life, he says, because essentially what did Chassidus do? It did not come to add more mitzvahs, or add rituals, or add customs, or add other ideas, or add new experiences or commandments of Judaism. God forbid. If Torah is divine, you don't add, and you don't take, you don't remove. You don't increase, you don't delete. What it did was, it flicked open the switch. Oir v'chayus nafsheinu. It allowed us to see that which was there earlier, to be able to see it in a deeper fashion, in a more sophisticated fashion, to be able to appreciate that which you already have, but to see it in its full glamour and its full depth, to be able to give life to that structure that existed, but to give it a new warmth and a new passion. Two ideas in Vayeshev, in the week which always coincides with Yud-Tes Kislev. In the two dramatic stories of the new portion. The first, the story of Yehuda and Tamar. It's a complicated story, it's a difficult story. Tonight is not the time and the place to analyze and dissect the story in detail, although probably quite a few of you would be interested in that. But briefly, the skeleton of the story is Judah marries a woman. Yehuda's Jacob's son marries a woman, has 3 sons, Er, Oinon, and Shelah. He marries his oldest to a young woman named Tamar. Er dies. In the tradition of Yibum Levirate marriages, he marries off Tamar to his second son, Oinon. Oinon also dies. Yehuda blames his daughter-in-law instead of his sons. She now is bound up in the system of Levirate marriages to whom? To her third brother-in-law, since both of them died childless. whose Sheila Yehuda doesn't want to marry her off to Sheila because he's scared that she is responsible for the death of the first ones. So Tamar is caught in a trap. She's not free. He doesn't want to give her to Sheila. He's pushing her off. And then in a very courageous and uniquely singular act, she disguises herself according to Nachmanides, Ramban. Before the Torah was given, Levirate marriage law, Yibum, did not only apply to a brother-in-law. Deuteronomy, it says if a woman marries a man and he dies childless, she, if she wishes, could marry his brother. Before the Torah was given, it was any relative, not only a brother-in-law, including a father-in-law. Tamar disguises herself as a zoyna, as a harlot. She engages her father-in-law Yehuda in a relationship. 3 months later, she takes collateral from him in lieu of pay. 3 months later, they tell Yehuda, your daughter-in-law Tamar has conceived a child. It's now noticeable. Obviously, he didn't think it was from him. Obviously, she had a relationship with somebody else, as she was bound up in a marriage to his third son, Sheila. It's a form of adultery. As the Chizkuni explains it, other commentators, the verdict is a death penalty. As she's being taken out to the stake, she sends a message to her father-in-law Yehuda, and she says, the man who owns these items, he is the man who impregnated me. Recognize. Can you recognize these 3 items? Chosemes, the seal. Psilim, the cord, the rope. Mata, the staff. Vayakir Yehuda recognizes these items. He gave them to her. Vayomer, and he says, Tzotka, she's right. Mimeni. I'm the one who did it. That's my child. Mimeni. Parenthetically, I have a Torah. It's not for now, but I'm just going to tell you. Yehuda is the grandfather of Mashiach, right? Yehuda is the grandfather of King David. His son was Peretz, and then all the way to King David, Solomon, and Mashiach. Why Yehuda? Why Judah? Perhaps one of the reasons is, same reason why he's the father of Jewish dynasty. Why is Judah the father of Jewish dynasty? The Jewish dynasty of royalty comes from Yehuda. Why? The courage for somebody to get up and say, Mimeni, I did it. Imagine the chief rabbi of one of the most important chief rabbis of the world would condemn somebody to the death penalty because of horrible promiscuity. And then the last minute he would find out that he's the one who did it. And she's innocent. What would he do? I think the normal thing to do was, he would say, what? I found a Pischei Tshuva. I found a Rebbe Akiva Eiga. I found a Nigris Moshel. Pull out somewhere a responsa that he found on Google. And according to that, we could find a loophole that b'shas adchak, b'di'evet, and this. Fine, everyone is happy. He's a man. She was saved. Yehuda gets up and says, Mimeni. How much vulnerability, how much courage, how much integrity. That moment, God saw, this is the one who we can trust with power of aristocracy, with the power of Malchus. He is the father of the dynasty of Mashiach. Tzotka mimeni. Imagine what they said in Shul that Shabbos about him. He didn't care. He didn't care. Truth iberalis. Integrity above all. Tzotka mimeni. He knew that in life, to be happy, you have to do one of 2 things. Either you have a clear conscience, or you kill your conscience. If you don't want to kill it, make it clear. He also knew the one you have to be accountable more than anybody else is the person who looks at you in the mirror. Which in other words is also always God. Tzotka mimeni. It's me. I impregnated her. She's innocent because I'm a father-in-law. Yibum, levirate marriages, she was allowed. And he explains, and she was desperate. I never gave her to Sheila. She was stuck. to the rock and the hard ball. She was stuck. And she gave birth to twins, Peretz and Zarach. And Peretz would become the great-great-grandfather of Boaz, Oived, Yishai, David. That's the story. The skeleton of the story. Comes the Helike Bas Ayin, Reb Avram of Avruch, one of the students of the Maggid of Mezrich. And he says every story in Torah can be interpreted on many layers. He says there's a deeper dimension to this story, and this is what the Bas Ayin teaches us. Open your hearts. Who's Tamar? You know what Tamar means? A palm tree. Tzadik, katamar yifrach. Ke'erez balavonen yizgeh. The righteous person grows like a palm tree. Like a cedar in Lebanon, he shall prosper. Tamar, the Gemara says, the Talmud says in Tractate Sukkah, why do we use a lulav on Sukkahs? A lulav is a branch of a palm tree. It has one heart. It has a single heart. The Jewish people have one heart to our Father in heaven. That's Tamar. Tamar represents the Jew. We say in the Hoshainus of Sukkahs, Damsa l'samar. Goyla v'soyre damsa l'samar. She's comparable to the date tree, to the palm tree, which has one heart physically. Tamar is the Jew. Who's Yehuda? Yehuda is the only name that contains within it all four letters of God's name. Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. Yehuda represents God's name. Hashem. Yehuda and Tamar, Hashem and the Jewish people. It says in Kabbalah that the ultimate verdict for the new year, we have Rosh Hashanah, we have Yom Kippur, we have a Shana Rabbah. That's why we wish a Shana Rabbah a Gittin Kvittel, a good year. But the ultimate final verdict is when? Chanukah. The 8 days of Chanukah are like the 8 days of Sukkot. You've spoken enough in your life. Will you ever be quiet? No, actually, I love you. Okay. Go on all night. 8 days of Chanukah. It's Rosh Hashanah in the world. What happens Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? Jews who don't show up in synagogue all year, we call them three. We call them the Jews that come 3 days a year. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, everyone comes to shul. And everyone thinks the same thoughts. God, I know I have not been the best human being, the best Jew, but I'm here. I want to do tshuva. I want to repair my life. I want to make amends. This is going to be the year. Yom Kippur, you by Ne'ilah, you scream, Hashem Huwa Elokim. God is the true God 7 times, and every Jew's heart, whoever he or she is, has a moment, a spark of inspiration, of openness. Every Jew says, it's going to be a better year. I'm going to remove the stains. I'm going to remove the impurities. I'm going to enhance my life spiritually and morally and emotionally, etc. The marriage between the Jew and the God looks so sweet, so romantic, so promising. Vayihi kimishloish chadashim. But almost 3 months pass. And the message comes to Yehuda, Hine zonsa Tamar kalasecha v'gamine haraliz nunim. Your daughter-in-law, your Kala Tamar, engaged in a promiscuous relationship, and she became pregnant from the adultery. Around 3 months later, when is 3 months later? Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of Tishrei. Tishrei, Cheshvan, end of Kislev, Chavei Kislev, it's almost 3 months. Kimish loish chadashim, almost 3 months, around 3 months. Now is the final verdict. The Satan comes to the Rebbeinu Shalom, to God, to Yehuda, and says, Tamar, your Jew, Kalasecha, your old bride, she left you. She's promiscuous. Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, she was inspired. But then winter comes, a new year comes, she left you. She couldn't care less for you. There are more promising things going on. She's busy, she's stressed, she's overwhelmed. She's selfish perhaps, or he's selfish. She forgot about you. You're not part of her life. Sometimes a person engages in a relationship temporarily. It's an outlet. But sometimes you become entrenched. What we call addiction. What we call entrenchment. She became pregnant from the relationship. She didn't only leave you temporarily. She's going to build a future with somebody else. She has abandoned you. She has no God in her life any longer. Yom Kippur was Yom Kippur. And now she went elsewhere. Vayoyme Yehuda. Yehuda says, if that's the case, I have no need for her in this world. The entire purpose of Tamar in this world was to elevate the world, to create transcendence in the world, to reveal the unity in the world, to challenge the status quo of the world. If she's like everybody else, there's no justification for her in this world. And that's the verdict he tells the Satan at the final moment of Chanukah, 3 months after Rosh Hashanah. He mutzes, Tamar is being taken. She sends a message to God, to Yehuda, and she says, you want to know who I'm pregnant from? The person who owns these 3 objects. Haker no recognize. Who owns 3 things? The choisem, the psil, and the mata. What is this? Says the Basayan, it's the first night of Chanukah, and a Jew prepares in his home or her home a menorah. And as he or she prepares the menorah, they're actually sending a message to Yehuda, saying, Haker no, take a look. Lemi ha-choisemes, v'ha-psilim, v'ha-mata ha'ela. Choisemes means what? The seal. What is she referring to? The oil that goes into menorah. Why do we light this oil? Because in the times of Chanukah, the Chashmonaim found 1 jug of oil that had the seal of the high priest. And they knew it was untouched and untarnished by the Greeks. That's the oil. V'hapsilim. What does a psil mean? A wick. The wick. V'hamata. Hamata b'gematria keli imakoila. The candelabra, the vessel, the keli. That's the gematria. So we have the oil, we have the wick, and we have the candelabra, the vessel, the keli, the utensil. Haker no! Recognize! Who owns the oil, the wick, and the candelabra? The one who owns these 3 items, he is the one. Asher anoichi hara, from whom I have conceived a child. God, before you come to a conclusion that I have left you, I have betrayed you, look at this. Look at the menorah that the Jewish people lit at the time of Chanukah, and the menorah they have been lighting since. It is to you that we are connected. V'hamata, the stick, refers to one more thing. It refers to the wandering stick. God, generation after generation, our forefathers had the courage of lifting up a wandering stick and leaving and abandoning the homes and the cities where they lived. They had the courage of igniting the oil and the wick and the candelabra. Why? Because it is from you that we are impregnated. It is to you that we are committed. It is to you that we are connected. Recognize the item and tell us. Look at the sacrifice of this nation for thousands of years. Has sacrificed on your altar its best, its holiest, its choicest. For whom? For you. Don't say today that we have betrayed you 3 months after Yom Kippur. We went to build a future with somebody else. Look at this menorah. Vayakir Yehuda. Yehuda recognizes Vayoyim, and what does he say? Tzadka mimeni. She's right. She's loyal to me. Ki al kain lo nesatiha l'Sheila b'ni. For I haven't given her to Sheila, my son. Who's Sheila? The verse says in Parshas Vayechi about Shevet Yehuda, La Yasur Shevet mi Yehuda mechoykik me bein raglav ad ki yavai Shilai. The ruler will not leave Judah, and the scepter will not depart from him till the day that Shilai comes. Says Rashi, who is Shilai? Zeh HaMelech HaMashiach. Al kein lo nesati el sheila b'ni. It's my fault. I have not given her to Sheila. I have not brought Mashiach. What can I expect? You take a people and you leave them for 2,000 years in a bitter and dark exile, and you're concealed. You expect that nobody drifts, that nobody stumbles, that no one questions, that no one falls. You really expect that? I'm guilty. I never gave her to Sheila. And then I say she's pregnant from somebody else. Tzotka, she is right. She is in the right. I should have given her to Sheila. And the Jew senses this response. And the celebrations of Chanukah begin. This was the first great message that the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe taught. This idea articulated in Bas Ayin by a student of the Maggid of Mezrich, namely, giving us the methods, the way of looking at the Jewish people. In the 200 years when so much assimilation would occur, this message allowed and allows us to be able to look at every single Jew, wherever he or she is, and say, Damsa l'samar. Goyle v'sura, Damsa l'samar. Toyenes ulach, Yechida l'yachtach, in the words of the Hishaimis. To look at the Jew and superficially you can say, Zan satamar kalasecha v'hine haral is nunim. She couldn't care less. She abandoned you. She's alienated. But if you look deeper, if you look deep into the candles, if you look deep into the oil, you will find suddenly that that the Jew has never left God. That the Jew may be lost, the Jew may have questions, the Jew may be confused, the Jew may be ignorant, the Jew may be alienated. But who is he pregnant from? Where does his true passion lay? Where does his true commitment lay? Where does his true soul lay? He has never made real peace in assimilation. Even till today, the most alienated Jew has never made full peace with his alienation. Still experiences a void, may not know what that void is, but still experiences a void. He never fully integrated and built a future with it. Searches, questions, gets angry. But there's a thirst, there's a yearning expressed in one way or another. As I once heard from Rabbi Adin Even Yisrael, Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, he's walking Shabbos in Jerusalem to Tzemach Tzedek synagogue in the Old City, and he meets an artist, a very liberal left-wing Israeli artist. And you know, Americans don't know how to be left-wingers, Israelis do. He says, where are you going, Rav? He says, I'm going to the synagogue. And where are you going? He says, I'm going to have a minhag, have a custom Shabbos morning. There's a place that serves bacon and eggs. And in honor of the holy day of Sabbath, I go and I have my bacon. Rav Steinsaltz says, and what do you do for Shabbos lunch? He says, I have some lobster. And Shalosh Shudas, he says, in honor of the holy day of Shabbos, I eat some shrimp. So Rav Adin says, you know, I'm really jealous of you. He says, of course you're jealous of me. You're going to synagogue, I'm going to have fun. He says, that's not why I'm jealous. I'm jealous of how meaningful Shabbos is to you. Of how deep it penetrates you. You know, I have to admit, I go to shul, I come home, it's not such a big deal. But for you, Shabbos is not a regular day. Shabbos affects you so deeply, you feel that on Shabbos you have to eat bacon and shrimp and lobster. He says, you see, my friend, you also observe Shabbos. You observe Shabbos with more passion than I do. You just do it in a different way. And I wish I would observe Shabbos with the same passion like you. Some of you remember the arbitering, the workman's circle, the Farvitz. They used to have a ball, a party every year. You know which night? Yom Kippur. So I once asked one of the directors of the Ford, I said, why do you guys choose Yom Kippur? Why didn't you make your ball Erev Yom Kippur? He tells me, because Erev Yom Kippur, it's a mitzvah to eat. Why do they have to make it Yom Kippur? To make it Yom Kippur because he couldn't just sit in his house Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, he has to go make a party. No, tell me, he's disconnected. If he's disconnected, he doesn't have to go party Yom Kippur. He can party a day after Yom Kippur. Or as Elie Wiesel says, the Jew knows how to love God or hate God. He doesn't know how to ignore God. It's this teaching of the Baal Shem Tov that empowered a generation of Jews, especially today, to be able to go out to the furthest corners of the world, including Southwest Connecticut, Northwest Connecticut, because Southwest Connecticut is mamish different, you know? And you all know the difference, of course. That's why you're all correcting me. The topography and everything else, of course. The spiritual one. It empowered a generation to go and to be able to look at every single Jew and say, Le'ish asher lo yanoichi hara. Go a little deeper and you'll find infinite treasures. You'll find an internal fire. Rishafer ishveyez, dam solisamar, leiv echad. And maybe that also explains why the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, made it such a powerful initiative that the menorahs should go up everywhere. The menorahs. And somehow people don't even realize the indirect revolution it created. Not by the Jew who comes to the menorah lighting, the Jew who goes shopping and sees the menorah and doesn't like it. You know what I mean? It's too Jewish. Church and state. Church and state. The kratzmach trees on every corner, every few feet you walk, that he appreciates. Democracy. The Amish he loves. The menorah, too Jewish. But it touches him. And his child sees, there's a menorah and there's a light that gets ignited in his soul. Even if he doesn't come home and eat oily latkes the same night. But one day he'll end up in the Chabad house and eat oily latkes. Baruch Hashem. And even if the story doesn't end that way, as I told you earlier, not every story ends that way. But there's a relationship that's touched, that's ignited. Finally, there's one more message dealing with the second item. And this I'll communicate very briefly. It's one of the most painful stories in the entire Bible, in the entire Tanakh. The story of Joseph and his brothers, Yosef and his brothers, you know. Yaakov calls Yosef in and he says, Hine achecha royim b'Shechem. Your brothers are shepherding the flock in the city called Shechem. In Arabic, it's called today Nablus. L'chovesh l'chacha aleim. Let me go send you to them. Vayomer loy. Joseph tells his father, Hineni, I'm here. And he goes, and you know the story. He goes, and his brothers take him, and they remove the tunic, the colorful tunic, the ksainas pasim that his father made specially for him. They throw him into the pit. They take him from the pit, they sell him into slavery. You read the story every year, and if you're sensitive, you start crying. And you know the Jewish woman who was reading the Chumash, and Yosef is coming closer to his brothers, and she says, "Don't go! You saw what happened to you last year." And then she reads further, Yosef goes, they throw him into the pit, and she says, "Yosef, now you deserve it. You didn't listen to me. You went again." It's a hard story, But I want to focus on one detail. Everybody asks the question, what does Yaakov mean? Your brothers are shepherding in Shechem. Let me go send you to them. What's the connection on if they were shepherding? If they were shepherding in Lakewood or in Crown Heights or not in Shechem, I wouldn't send you. Your brothers are shepherding in Shechem, that's why. So some commentators say it was a makom sakana, it was a dangerous place, so he wants to send. But if it's dangerous, why did they go there? And why would he subject Joseph to that danger? And then there's a little detailed question, but from details you get everything. Vayomer loi hineni. Why not vayomer hineni? When God tells Avram, Kachna, vayomer elav Avraham, God calls Avram, what's the next word? Vayomer hineni. He doesn't say vayomer loi hineni. It's obviously it was loi. He was talking, vayomer hineni. Here, Jacob tells Joseph, I'm going to send you to Shechem, and he said to him, hineni. Why not vayomer hineni? So let's open our minds and open our hearts. The words b'Shechem, now listen, I'm going to do this a little fast. The word b'Shechem is an acronym of 4 words, right? What are the 4 words? Baruch, Shem, Kvoid, Malchusah. The word Loi is an acronym of 2 words. Which words? La'olam vad. Baruch, Shem, Kvoid, Malchusah, la'olam vad. Your brothers are shepherding in Shechem. In Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusah, I have to send you to them. Vayoim Eloi! He said, La'olam vad hineni. What's the meaning? The meaning is, Joseph and his brothers, Yosef and his brothers had 2 very different philosophies on life. Joseph's brothers believed that the only way you can connect to God is if you're completely isolated from the material world. That's why they were shepherds. A shepherd has the unique fortune of spending his or her days in nature. This shepherd spends time with animals, with sheep, with goats, near brooks of water, near grass and hay and pasture, away from the hustle and bustle of cosmopolitan, urban, stressful life. That's where you can commute with nature, and you could commute with the author of nature, with God who is in nature and above nature. And then there's Joseph. Joseph has a dream, a very different dream, and he dreams about a different type of influence. The sheaves are bowing down to him. The sun and the moon and the stars are bowing down to him. Joseph dreams of having global influences, of changing the world, and the brothers feel that he is undermining the essence of Judaism. He wants to expose Judaism to a world that will destroy it at its core. The brothers say, Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusah. Blessed is God and the kingdom of God. And what does Joseph say? La'olam vad. La'olam vad. The challenge is to go into the world and reveal in the world the oneness of God. Mi cha'amcha Yisrael goyechad ba'aretz. The Divrei Hayamim says, who is like your nation, Israel, one nation on earth? So everyone says it means, who is like your nation, Israel, one unique nation on earth? Comes the Alter Rebbe and says in Tanya Negeres HaKodesh, Goy Echad Ba'aretz, it's the nation that has the courage to reveal oneness in the earth. For this, Jacob makes Joseph a Ksainis Pasim, a colorful shirt. What's this colorful shirt? And why are they jealous? Go to Century 21 and buy a colorful shirt. Why are they jealous? The answer is, what does it mean, a colorful, multicolored shirt? Jacob understood that Joseph has the power to create unity from the diverse colorfulness of life. The tribes believe that you could connect to oneness, through isolation, segregation, aloofness, sublimity. Joseph had the ability, unique, his brothers didn't have it, to be able to go into a world of diversity, a world of contrasts, of paradoxes, a world that pulls you in so many directions, to be able to look at the diversity. And what do you do with diversity? One of 2 things. Either diversity gets you confused or ambivalent, but Joseph has the power to reveal the oneness that underlies the diversity, to reveal that the diversity are all various colors that manifest from one truth, to reveal the oneness within the earth, to reveal the soul and the body, to reveal heaven and earth, to reveal the cosmic oneness within the cosmos. The brothers couldn't understand this. That's why they didn't get this shirt. It's not for them. They said, Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusah. Yosef said, La'olam vad. So Yaakov says, "Halo yachecha royim b'Shechem." Your brothers only have Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusay. Let me send you to them to be able to help them navigate a new future. Jacob knows that the future of the Jewish people will take them out of the desert, out of the farms, will take them into cosmopolitan Egypt. He knows that the walls of the ghetto will crumble and they're going to have to face a real world culture and civilization in one form or another. Whether you have internet or you're lucky not to have internet in the house, they're going to have to face a world. They will have to learn the depth of Joseph, which can show them how to steer in the world and say, Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusay La'olam Voed Michamcha Ki Yisrael Goy Echad Ba'aretz Vayomer Loi Hineni Vayomer Loi La'olam Voed Hineni. He goes. The result ultimately is he ends up in Egypt. They must follow him. They bow down to him. And they learn indeed to embrace, to appreciate the depth of Yosef. They learn to understand that Yosef embodies that power. Lasas lo yizbarich dira b'tachtoina. You don't have to be afraid. The truth of God is all-pervasive and all-encompassing. The truth of God comes out of every heartbeat and every grain of sand, of every grazing animal and every flake of snow. The colorfulness of the world, underlying it, craves and gravitates to reveal the oneness that's beyond. The oneness that's at the core of science, physics, biology, mathematics, geology, astronomy, and all forms of wisdom of science and physics. Joseph taught that to them. Vayomer Loi Hineni. So you all know that big law, Shabbos. If your husband makes Kiddush in one room, and then you go and you have the meal in another floor, another room, it's not good. You have to make Kiddush again. Why? Ain't Kiddush Ella b'makam Seuda. Kiddush has to be in the place of the meal. What does that mean? It means this. Some people scream, Kadosh, 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 in the synagogue. But then when they sit down for the meal, here they are gluttonous narcissists. In the synagogue, they close their eyes and they say Kiddush. But when they come home, they're self-centered beasts. In synagogue, they scream, Ein oid milvad, there's nothing but God. But in business, sharks. Ein kiddush ela b'makom seuda. Judaism does not recognize holiness that is not in the place of the meal. We don't acknowledge holiness that is detached from the meal. Kiddush is b'makom seuda. If the holiness does not inform, enlighten, inspire your meal, your feast, your material life, the way you treat people in the office, the way you treat your spouse and children in the home, this is not the holiness that we acknowledge. Kiddush b'makom seuda. Who's usually the one who makes Kiddush? The husband. Who's usually the one who prepares the Suda? Very often, it's the holy wife. Ein Kiddush ela b'makom seuda. The woman has to now reveal the Kiddush in the place of the meal. That's Yosef. B'chin of Yosef. This was the second major teaching, major idea developed by the Alter Rebbe based on the ideas of the Baal Shem Tov. Baruch Shem Kevoid Malchusay La'olam Voed. The Gemara says, Asay Shabbat Chachol V'al Tetztarech Labriyos. You know what that means? Make your Shabbos weekday, but don't need somebody else. Which means, if you're going to have to borrow money to make Shabbos, don't make Shabbos. Eat herring. Eat crackers. Don't buy sushi. Asay Shabbat Chachoil V'al Tetzarech Labriyos. Better not to need anybody. Make your Shabbos like a weekday. Comes the Heilige Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Pulna, the student of Baal Shem Tov, and says, listen, Asay Shabbat Chachoil V'al Tetzarech Labriyos Gewalt. Make your Shabbos weekdays. Take your Shabbos and bring it into the weekday. V'al tetztarech lebrius. And then you will not need any creature during the weekdays. If you take Shabbos into your weekdays, if you make your Shabbos weekday, you bring it into the weekday, then throughout the weekday, you're not going to be scared of anybody, you're not going to need anybody, you're not going to be codependent on anybody, because you'll have Shabbos in your weekday. You'll have Hashem in your weekdays, you'll have God in your weekdays. Then you won't need anybody a whole week. You won't be with trauma, you won't be obsessed, you won't be infatuated, you won't be codependent, you won't need anybody, because the Shabbos is in the weekdays, the Kiddush is b'makom sud. These two features are the calling of every Jew in today's generation, especially the one responsible for the future and destiny of the Jewish people, the Jewish woman, the Jewish mother. Number one, to be able to look at every one of our children and every one of our brothers and sisters and say, Tamar! Tamar is kalosecha leisha sherei leloy anoichi hara. Recognize the depth, recognize the richness, recognize the holiness. And number two, the ability to be able to look at diversity and see the ksainas pasim of Jacob. See the multicolorfulness as an expression of a singular unity. To be able to confront and go every single day into a world, asay Shabbat chachoil, to make the choil into Shabbos by bringing the Shabbos into choil, by declaring ein kiddush ela b'makom su'uda, that God is alive and present in the world, in the body, even in the most material aspects and meaningless aspects of the world. There is a unity that belies the diversity every single where in the world. But for this, every single morning, when you wake up, or before you wake up, or before children wake up, you have to do two things. Number one, you have to dedicate a few minutes to talk to God. You have to connect to the unity beyond diversity. And number two, you have to learn something. You learn something of Torah, you learn something of Chassidus, of this wisdom. It allows you to connect to that source, which then empowers you that throughout the day, you'll be able to look at yourself and every person and see Tamar, and you'll be able to look at the world and be able to declare Baruch Shem, Kvoid Malchusai, La'olam Vad, until that day when it will be revealed to the whole world by Yoimahu Yiyeh Hashem Echad Ushma Echad. May it be speedily in our days now. Thank you very much.